like your blurred background. It's a nice touch.
It's just because it's my. I wouldn't normally have it on. Oh. Oh.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, hello, willkommen, bienvenue, konnichiwa, ni hao, jambo, marhaba. It's time for the Arms Inquisition yet again, episode 244 on Sunday, the 21st of August, 2022. I'm Amish Phil.
I'm Amish Matt.
No Amish Ben this week, he's slumming it in a field somewhere, isn't he?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, no fear. We've got Nikkiana Jones with us tonight. How are we doing, Nikki?
Good. Hi, guys.
Hi.
It's nice.
Pleased to be here.
Yeah, nice to meet you at last. I think I reached out to you, didn't I, over Twitter because, I don't know, I guess it was on Twitter where I first saw you, and then I found your YouTube channel and then your website, and just looking at your website, you seem to be interested in all the same subjects as us, so it sort of made sense to meet up.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we got some of the same people we've interviewed, and yeah, like you guys are interested in. Well, I don't know. My current passion this the whole year has been. I used to be UFOs, which I still like UFOs, but I'm not really. I mean, now I'm more into the megaliths. I'm like super like, whoa, what is going on with all like the nubs and the like all the general hallmarks that are everywhere. And I like giants a lot right now too. So I don't know. Those are kind of my current,
crushes or deep dives. We've got Matt Apocalypse and Ziggy Dan in the chat already. Cracky, they're keen.
Wow.
Keen them too, aren't they?
Yeah.
Ooh, hey Ziggy.
Oh, speaking of Ziggy, oh my gosh, you've been what would you say, experimenting with live streaming recently.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, that was an ordeal. We it took us like 4 hours to finally get live, and then we did do a live stream, and we were trying to get everybody's channel live, but it only went live on mine, and it was still good though. And yeah, I did a live stream with Wandering Wolf, Mike, and Ziggy Dan together, and we talked some shit about history, so that was fun.
Yeah, I think it was it last week or the week before, and I think it was a Friday night, and I was just getting ready to put the kids to bed. And I got a DM off Ziggy Dan. And he was like, trying to stream on YouTube. Got any advice? I was like, how long have you got? It's like, it's a minefield. And
we thought we could do it directly from YouTube, but that's not possible. And I don't understand, like that doesn't even behoove YouTube for that not to be something that you can do. It's very and if you can do it, you can't just do it with multiple people. So yeah,
no, you can't stream Zoom direct to YouTube without having a paid Zoom thing we were talking about before.
Right.
But I thought Ziggy was just trying to set up do a live stream for his subscribers or something, and forgot about it. And then I woke up the next morning. That's when I saw the YouTube had recommended your video with Ziggy and the Wandering Wolf.
Wow, I'm surprised they recommend videos now. They seem to just recommend
cats.
Cat
videos.
Cats, pretty much. Yeah. The Weather Channel.
Yeah, but it's cool how this sort of community is connected. I wasn't familiar with Mike up until very recently.
Oh yeah, Mike's great. Like he actually is very boots on the ground. Like, it's gone to so many of the actual sites. Like, I mean, China, like Shanghai. I mean, some of the places he's gone are like is I don't know anybody else who's gone to as many places as he has. So he's really impressive if you like start going through the back catalog of all of his footage. And he's, you know, big drone flyer. So he gets in there and flies a bunch of stuff and angles that, you know, a lot of people don't get. So his stuff's very impressive. I highly recommend checking out Wandering Wolf Mike. He's cool.
I'd invite him on our show, but I think I'd just be a gibbering wreck, Matt.
He would probably do it. He loves this kind of stuff.
Oh, he's such a dreamboat, Matt.
Is he really?
Honestly.
What was the other guy that was a dreamboat that we had on?
I was just gonna say, like, he's hotter than Ken Ami.
Oh, is he as intense though? That's the thing.
He's got the same like piercing blue eyes that are it's like a window into your soul.
I think Kenami was the most intense and I don't know solemn person I've ever spoken to in my entire life. So it is some big shoes to kind of fill that Phil.
Yeah, and he was a giant debunker as well. You might be.
Who is this?
You might be interested, Nikki. He's called Ken Ami. It must be nearly 2 years ago. Was it 18 months ago? Maybe when we had him. Maybe,
yeah, I think so.
But he's big into like the Old Testament, and you know the Nephilim giant connection. People, or what's the guy who David killed? Goliath, and
so he's into like the non-skeletal, like the 25-foot ones or whatever, like the giant.
He just looks at it purely from like a biblical textual perspective. And like he was talking about Rephaim and Anakim and all these Hebrew words and what they really mean, and basically he's not buying any of it. From the biblical perspective, I mean, whether he believes that Smithsonian's hoarding giant bones or not, maybe he does. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's also like what's his Michael Tellinger in South Africa has, like he'll be like, oh, this is a fossilized footprint and it's like bigger than his body, and you're kind of going like, I guess it looks like a footprint, but I don't know. The really 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 like 25-foot giants, I want them to exist. I don't know that they do exist, but I want them to exist. But I guess for me, if sloths were 20 foot only 10,000 years ago, then I don't know, maybe humans could have been super huge at some point too. And like I had Hugh Newman and Jim Vieira on my show recently, and they've written a bunch of books about giants, and they're like the giant experts, but they're very hardcore on as much evidence as they can get, and or where their line of research comes from. And they kind of said that one of the biggest problems is it's not like these people were preserving themselves like the Egyptian mummies or something. A lot of the bones, as soon as they're found, they disintegrate. Like they're not preserved well. So that could be another just point of something to keep in mind.
Yeah, what's the guarantee that? I mean, because it's only like fossils that they find over a certain time period, isn't it? You don't actually find the bones. I mean, I think, well, saying that, I don't know, what about these like ancient human skeletons or bones that are like
that's the thing, is it's like, okay, like let's say you're a cow and you die in a field today, and vultures are going to eat you, birds, like the worms, all this stuff, like 4 years from now, like farmers like running around, it's like a pile of weird bones, and then whatever, it just gets trampled on and it's gone with the wind. You have to have the right conditions of burial, and like a lot of these places with I like to dig dinosaur bones and stuff. I have found some like dinosaur teeth that are like super big and huge that are awesome. But anyway, like you have to have the right conditions in order for the preservation of even the fossil to be made. Like it has to be buried, and like, if it's just left to the elements, like nothing awesome is going to happen to it. Eventually it won't be here if the body's just out and left to the elements, unless it's in a desert somewhere like the Atacama Desert or something, you're not gonna be there in like 100 years. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, well, I remember reading somewhere about cars that like steel and stuff will rust away to nothing in in pretty short order. You know, a few thousand years, it'll be dust. There'll be nothing left of it. It kind of plays into that sort of. I don't know how far to go on the lost civilization stuff, because you're a big fan of like Atlantis and stuff as well, aren't you, Nikki? You were showing me the books. You got like half a dozen Atlantis books recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And so with me with Atlantis, you know, I have a lot of people talk. I mean, I talk a lot. I've read all the Plato stuff, all that. I don't really care. So, I mean, Plato's cool, is great, whatever. But that's
no Diogenes.
Atlantis. We could just call it. We can call it Atlantis, because I just think that means, like, what we really can definitively say that there is actual evidence for, or the kind of evidence that that is convincing enough for me, is these hallmarks that are on all these buildings across the world, like nubs. Like nubs can be found in like so many countries, every continent basically. And so can like these giant megalithic stones that are too big to move by our conventional means now. So how did they do it then? And like, so what that means to me, when you start looking at the fact that, and they'll tell you this one's 1,000 years old and this one's 10,000 years old and blah blah blah. You can't date stone. Don't listen to it. I just have to kind of throw dates out. And, you know, like, you don't have to, but that's what I'm doing. And like, the thing is, there's commonalities between all of these building techniques around the world before they're saying that we had globalization, like before we're supposedly sailing the oceans and this kind of stuff. And that's huge. And to me, I want to start calling that, like, okay, well, if the only word we have for this kind of pre-Diluvian sort of situation that they're talking about is Atlantis, then by all means, like, let's just call this like the giant Atlantis culture. I don't care. Like, but the actual concentric circle capital, like, where is that? Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think it's cool. It could be the Richard, it could be the Azores, it could be Doggerland, it could be Sandsbury, it could be where, I don't care. Like, what I care about is the fact that there really is evidence that we had a higher technology that we don't have right now. Like, we can't build the pyramids right now, and anybody who talks like we can, they just haven't been there and they don't know what they're talking about. That's,
I mean, just going back to Mike, the Wandering Wolf, the first video I saw of his was the one I think you mentioned it, the China one, the Quarry. What's it called? The
Yongxing, I can't say it. It's like Yongxing.
Yongshang, the unfinished stele. Did you hear?
Yeah,
did you see that one? I mean, honestly, Mike, you need to watch this. It makes these three stones, so that they're unfinished, fair enough, but they make Baalbek look like Lego bricks.
Well, yeah. I've been reading Fingerprints of the Gods, and that's, I think the bit that he was writing is nearly 30 years old, but it was saying, I think it was at is it the necropolis outside the Sphinx, or the temple complex outside the Sphinx? There's like megaliths there that are 200 tons, and like, this is why I was saying it's written 30 years ago, but he basically said there's two cranes in the world that can lift that weight with a counterweight of 160 tons.
Right.
Well, I think, like, aren't Boeing 737s or like which are our most standard airplane, aren't they like 100 tons or 150 tons or something, like, to put things in perspective? You're kind of going like, that's, you know, a ton is 2,000 pounds. When you start going into these numbers that we don't, even if you do have, and I've talked about this on many of my programs, is like, even if you do have the ability to lift the stones, how are you gonna? We don't currently have like the kind of trucks that you could put a Boeing on just by itself and then move it somewhere. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Basically, yeah.
Issue.
So yeah, but you know, I suppose it's how did they quarry it? How did they move it? And there's no real answers. Like, the main thing is ramps, isn't it? And then, you know, the length of the ramps in order to have it at an angle at which you could actually push a block up to the top of the pyramid is like ridiculously long. It just all becomes
well,
stupid.
and then they'll be like, oh well, and then they did these waterways. They built it with these. I'm like, oh, well, where's the proof of these waterways? Like, where's the? I mean, or where are your giant ramps or your giant pulley systems and your giant cranes? Like, you have your little beautiful boat that you buried next to the wooden boat that you buried next to the pyramid. Like, why didn't you ever, nothing else ever like lived? It's just kind of weird. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's a question of scale, really. The Romans were good at moving heavy shit with cranes. They moved those big. They nixed loads of monoliths from granite monoliths from Egypt. And put them in Rome and whatnot. But again,
Roman concrete is still like superior. It's pretty badass. So
yeah, there's still some in our country about 100 miles north. It's a big wall that Hadrian built.
Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah, and there's still plenty of it. Still plenty of it there you can see. But like you talking about the blocks at Giza, 200 tons. Baalbek, we're talking 1,000 tons. It's an order of magnitude basically. And I remember when I first learned about Baalbek, I looked at what was the heaviest lifting crane that existed. And it was a Chinese shipping crane. And it was a crane at a port that could lift 1,000 tons. But it was stationary. So it was like a massive frame that a boat would go under, and then the crane would just lift it up and drop it. Wouldn't swing it around or lift it and, put it somewhere else. That's all it did was lift it straight up and straight down. But those stones at Shang, the unfinished stele, apparently...
they're crazy. And they have nubs. They have nubs on them.
As far as I know, the Chinese stele were built in like 3 pieces. So you had like a base, and then like a column, and then like a headstone or a capstone. And if I remember right, the capstone alone, the smallest piece, was 6,000 tons. And they were planning to lift that like 200 feet into the air to put on top a 6,000 ton block. And the whole thing.
Wait. I'm going to go. Okay, so 6,000 times 2,000. That's that in pounds.
12 million pounds.
12 million pounds. Okay, yeah, sure.
But that's the small bit. The whole thing altogether, if it had been constructed, would have weighed, I think it was over 30,000 tons. It's insane. I don't get it. I don't get the audacity to even attempt it. They obviously thought they could do it.
Well, and that's what makes you start thinking like outside the box on like, wait, what is going on, and who did this, and where are they? And so I used to go down the ancient aliens sort of rabbit hole, and then I just was like, that's just as much of as a theory and a fairy tale as anything else. Like, oh yes, I come from this digital art piece over here, and then I don't know. So now I think but have you guys dug into the inner Earth stuff?
Hollow Earth.
The hollow, hollow Earth, inner Earth. Not necessarily that the whole Earth is hollow, but just that like there's like a network of like maybe things live there or underneath everything or whatever. Like that's where I don't know. For me, I think that I think that something else coexists with us on this planet. And it doesn't necessarily have to be from another planet. It could be from this planet too. It's just that I just don't know. Like, I don't think you like have the ability to build something like Sexy Woman or whatever, and then you just go out with a bang. You're just like, oh, okay, well, bye. I think that they I don't know. I think there's these really. I think they live somewhere else still. There you go.
I've looked. I've not done any like in-depth research or anything, but I have seen videos about these underground cave structures that seem to be pretty much everywhere, and they have again similar sort of construction methods. They look the same whether they're in Turkey or Spain or the UK, and that's something I'd probably need to look into. In fact, Matt, weren't we gonna get someone who's like an underground urban explorer once upon a time? Do you remember that?
Vaguely, yeah.
I guess that worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because again, it's all stone. You see, it's all made of stone, so we don't know. Do we have a good handle on when these were built, or when they were occupied? I don't know.
You have like Turkey, Deir, and Kuru, but I mean, even just like the cave systems that exists in like like in Mexico, like that have all the cenotes, which are like the underground rivers and stuff. They're all connected, and like there's so like even in the Americas, like we have our cave systems underneath the ground are just like Mammoth Cave alone, like all the things that can connect by caves. You're just going like, there's a world within the world, man. Like there's a whole other thing that could exist that we don't know. But then there's stories, there's like Dulce, New Mexico, when they're like digging, and then they found some crazy ant people, and they like were shooting each other, and then there's like stories like there's I can't remember the name. It's like somewhere in the UK where in the I don't know, like the 15 to 16, 1700s. I don't really know. Some couple, 300 years ago, some like green kids like walked out of a cave, and the boy died like in like, I don't know, a couple years. And then the girl lived to be an adult, and her skin started becoming regular color, and she like had kids and stuff. And they said that they lived underground, and like there's legends of like this kind of stuff all over the world about like and then you have like Admiral Byrd, who there's like the story of him going like into both poles, and there's
Admiral Byrd.
Admiral
How do you
say that? Admiral Byrd. I'm Texan and I can't speak that well. So
what's the Admiral Byrd story?
So he was the first dude to go to both the North and the South Pole, and he was a general or admiral, whatever. And he flew into the South Pole and I think the North Pole, I don't know, I think it's the South Pole is the one that, anyway, he claims that there is a entrance inside the earth, and that giants live there, and beings. And that he like hung out with them for a couple hours and then left. And then he like wrote a book about it and like released it on his deathbed. People are like, yeah, that's a little bogus. But then there's that's not it. There's like so many stories. There's like this, what's called like the Smoky Gods or something. And it's like this Norwegian dad and son who got lost in the tides, and they ended up going through the North Pole and into inside the earth through there, and then they exited maybe the South Pole or something like 8-9 years later, and they lived with a bunch of giants there. And there's all kinds of different stories that you start hearing about this stuff, or you start hearing about like Shambhala, which is what supposedly the Tibetan, like that's what like the Dalai Lama is supposedly connecting to, is he's like the intermediary between the Shambhala world and our world, which is like a kind of like another dimensional world. But I've also heard it described as like inside the Tibetan mountains, like in caves, there's a whole what is the name of the capital? Can't even think of it right now. But yeah, like there's, anyway, I start looking into, that's like a rabbit hole I'm on right now as well. It's a good rabbit hole. You should get into it.
Well, thinking of Admiral Byrd, I was reading a Britannica Encyclopedia entry from 1947 the other day, as you do. And they were talking about Byrd's expedition. And he said it was weird. It was something like they found like an inland oasis with muddy lakes and a lake or a recess that was miles deep.
Is that in Antarctica?
In Antarctica. Uh-huh. It was wild because we have this we have different theories about, it's sort of militarized now. You can't go there. You can't fly over it. It's like...
that kind of links to the Think of Prince of the Gods again, in terms of, the first bits about the mystery of the maps. And when you look at like sort of like these old maps that allegedly were copied in the 14th and the 15th century, from earlier maps, in the middle of Antarctica, there's often depicted to be a lake or an inlet. So, don't know, bit of a link there.
Yeah, that was the Piri Reis map, wasn't it, Nikki?
Yeah, the Peru.
Yeah,
I mean,
one of
The
them.
famous
yeah.
ones.
Mm.
I do think that Antarctica is a huge. It's so weird to like. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go colonize Mars, and I'm like, oh really? Why don't you colonize like all the continents on your own planet first? Or like we don't even like I just think it's funny that like it's great, like go colonize Mars. I don't care. But what I'm saying is that yet we don't even, I think 4,000 people visit Antarctica a year, and you have to be on a research vessel and or pay like I have a friend who just got back from Antarctica, and I don't know, like 15 grand or 20 grand he had to pay to get on some like it's not just like anybody and their mama's dog can, I guess if you want to save up that much money can go, but it's and even like when I was talking to him about it, you're on the boat and it's just like, yes, and that is an iceberg, that is a penguin, and that it's not like you get to really do real exploring on this place. It's very, very controlled, and that's weird.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's like there's a moratorium on exploring. They won't just let anyone go there. I don't know who. This is probably nonsense, but I remember someone, I don't know if it was on the podcast or not, saying that like you'll get shot out of the sky if you try and fly there and stuff like that.
Well, there was that New Zealand airline that was going to do a I think this happened in the late 70s, and they were going to do a big, because New Zealand I guess is the closest country, well like maybe the tip of Chile or something, but anyway, they were going to have this commercial flight. It was like the Titanic, right? They would go fly over the South Pole and then come back to New Zealand, and it crashed on its maiden voyage, this big plane, and it was like a big deal, and like a lot of people, well, everybody died, but that's just kind of curious that it's like, okay, it's the one time they were going to do commercial airline flights that crossed over the South Pole, it conveniently crashes, and then when they've never done it again in 40 something years.
Yes, not to get conspiratorial or anything.
I love conspiratorial.
How did you get into all this, Nikki? Have you always been interested in like ancient history and stuff, or has it like been a gradual thing, or was there?
I was raised in New Mexico, and I'm like one of those, like, I don't know, I just have always had like crazy paranormal experiences my whole life, kind of thing, and I like, whether I've seen ghosts or like beings, or I've always had like weird stuff. So I was a weird kid, right? And then once I hit like high school, I just became a muggle like everybody else, and then I was just completely closed off to, no, I'm only staying with what's over in what's my told box until I probably hit 30. And then I'm 40, and like, so the last 10 years I've just, I don't know, just been on just have a sensational urge to like learn more about like what else could be going on, because like, I don't know. And then it's interesting because like my convictions just become even more stronger when you have things like I guess we can't even say the buzzwords of, but like the last couple of years, right? Like the lockstep that the whole globe has sort of been in over everything just makes you kind of go like, I think there's more going on than we're admitting. And like and the fact that I can't even really say everything, and that we have to be sensitive with our language is also an amazing little conspiracy theory thing too, right? I mean, so yeah. I don't know. I feel like I got into it early, and then I got out of it, and then I came back into it, and then now it just keeps on. Like what they say, what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and truth is 6 months or something. Yeah. Yeah. So I totally feel that.
What paranormal experiences have you had?
Well, like, I mean, I've seen UFOs. I've had beings come into my room at night. I've had ghosts. I've had, I've had some time slippage, some time shorted, stuff with time. Yeah, I've had some interesting stuff.
I thought you might have.
Oh, I saw a unicorn.
Oh,
yeah.
Right, unicorn. Did you not try and catch it, wrangle it, stick a saddle on it?
No, I was just because like, I was in Colombia, and it like touched me on the arm, and then and it was just like a horse with a horn, and I'd never really seen that. And there was like two other guys with me, and we all three were just sort of like paralyzed, like looking at it. And I was going like, oh yeah, wow. Horse. And my brain was going like, well, that horse has a horn. I didn't even think the word unicorn until the other guy was like, all right, I'm just gonna say it's a unicorn. We were like, oh yeah, it does appear to be a horse with a horn. And then I remember thinking like, well, I don't know, you're not supposed to touch unicorns based on
Harry Potter.
Hollywood. Harry Potter, right, in Hollywood, yeah. So I'm just kind of going like, well, but it touched me, but should I touch it? But it was just eating grass and it just walked away. So I don't know.
I can see no reason why, because you mentioned like the giant sloths. We lost like, was it about 70% of all megafauna at the Younger Dryas, something like that. Mm-hmm. You know, dozens and dozens and dozens of species of big
like
mammals.
Camels in North America.
Yeah. Short-faced cave bears, giant armadillos, all the rest of it. I can see no reason why there wouldn't be a horned horse, a unicorn. And if there was then, why can't they, you know, a small segment of them
survived or something? Yeah.
But I don't know, are you thinking it's more of a paranormal or interdimensional thing rather than like a hard physical, biological thing?
I was at a place that was supposedly an Atlantis portal. Like that's why I went to this place. It's in the middle of the Amazon forest. And it's like there was no infrastructure. Like we were going to the bathroom in holes, like and you know, where there was no civilization anywhere. So I mean, if they were I guess if they were going to still exist anywhere, that'd be the place to do it. You know, it took us like we had to ride on donkeys and stuff for like a day and a half to get there, and it wasn't like, I don't know that I would go back. Basically, it's a little too, it was too roughing it for me.
Yeah, I'm the same. I like home comforts. My wife and kids are off camping at the moment. It's like, no, I'm staying here. I want a coffee machine, and I want a microwave and an oven and hot running water. You lot knock yourself out.
My thing is like plumbing. Like I really enjoy, you know, the way we have plumbing. I think that's great.
Thing that concerns me is like, I think our civilization is hanging by a thread. Like, I don't think people realize, people sort of just drift through life and take everything for granted, and they don't realize, like, if you cut the power off, the electricity off, I mean, what I would give our civilization 2 weeks, 3 days. 2 weeks max. Yeah. I think the government, they put in the emergency messaging and send out the text messages. Power's gone down. We're working on it. Main thing, keep calm. Don't riot. Don't start stealing. We're working on it. And, you know, most people will buy that for a few days. And then, we're running out of food. Shit. All right, well, they'll have it fixed. Give it another few days. They'll have it fixed. So, yeah, I'd give it about 2 weeks till you have complete anarchy.
I recently started listening to a bunch of podcasts about like this de-civilization. It's like this book written by, I can't remember the name of the guy.
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you know, we're not procreating at the rate that we were. And like, you know, there's countries like China that did this whole one child left behind, or, you know, or not one child, like,
one child policy.
One child policy from, I think, like 1980 until 2015. So, and then they finally were like, oh, wait, you know what? Our biggest commodity is like our workforce, and we're not going to have that anymore because they're not really able to so I think that there's a lot of things that are going to change when we're old people and or for the next generation. And I don't think like this whole thing about how we're going to be overpopulated. I think we're going to be underpopulated, actually. And then that is like, you have a deconstruction of, if you don't have people to make things won't be made, kind of thing. And it could get real scary in a different, weird, you know, Mad Max kind of way that it's like not fun.
You've reminded me that I need to get that book and read it, because I've only read some reviews and listened to some other people break it down. But from how I understand it, this population collapse is already baked in. Certainly for China.
I mean, he's super doom and gloom. It's super depressing, because it's like, oh, there's nothing you can do for it right now. It's like, I get like,
It's on its
people
way.
can have babies, but they're not. So it's like, yeah, he's just like, yeah, it is what's coming.
I think it's more optimistic for America. I think he thinks America is going to make it.
I think he thinks that, but even still, like I like, but his that I thought that was a bias on his part because maybe he's American or whatever. But the thing is that we, like I was saying, we're a globalized world now. Like we're not individual countries really. So what, like every single, like right now, my brother just bought some, I don't know, Toyota Corolla, or I don't know, some car that is just like a sedan car, and it was like he paid 50 grand for it. And I'm like, you paid 50 grand for that? Like, if you're gonna pay 50 grand for a car, like make it like a cool car, not saying that those are not cool or whatever, but I'm just like,
They're not.
They're
like,
not, are they?
okay,
No.
right, they're not. Okay, but like, I'll put it like, okay, 3 years ago, that car would have been like 25. So you're paying double for the same car 3 years later. And the thing is like, oh, there's chip shortages because they're manufactured here or there. There's just we're not an island. There's no such thing as like an isolated place. Like we have a globalized economy with all of our stuff. And like, eventually that's gonna, we don't have the manufacturing for all the things that people have all in one place. So it'll hurt everybody.
I read something, I think it was last week, because your dear leader, Mr. Biden, has signed the it's not the Build Back Better bill. He couldn't get that through, so he's broken it into smaller chunks. It's called the Inflation Reduction Act. And part of that was some sort of a taxpayer subsidy for electric cars. So if you buy an electric car now, you get, I think it's $6,000 or $6,500 co-payment from the state or price reduction. And then like the next day, immediately after, Ford and some other company immediately put $6,500 on the price of all their electric cars. So, yeah, that's how it works.
That's a good way to do it. Be like, yeah, well, there you go. F you.
Yeah, it's like it's like, oh, you can't afford milk? Buy a cow. Buy an electric car. It's like,
I think they said something like, well, the gas prices are going up. The gas stations need to lessen those.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty sure that's how that works. Yeah, I don't know. I guess you just have to hold on to your hat, right?
Well, it's pretty much the same with us over here as far as inflation. We're at about 10% as well. The biggest problem we have in the UK is that our inflation's mainly been driven by energy prices, and our household heating, gas and electric bills are going to go nuts over the next 12 months, basically. So, I mean, before the pandemic, an average household gas and electric bill would be, what do you think, Matt, about £1,200?
I think that's what it was, yeah.
And they brought in this thing called an energy cap. So based on the wholesale price, there was a cap put on the unit cost of gas and electric. And because of the lockdowns and inflation and something happening in Eastern Europe since February, no one's talking about that, but some sort of war. Because of that, they're having to raise this cap because the wholesale price keeps going up. So whereas 18 months ago, we were paying £1,200 on average, they're now predicting...
A month or a year?
A year. £1,200 a year. So what would that be? About $1,800, something like that, $1,500.
Right.
But they're predicting now in April, it's going to be around £6,800. So it's going to go up threefold.
Yeah, and that'll break so many people. That's crazy. And yeah, it's that one thing I can say about that. I did this Earthship thing for like I did this, I don't know, 5 years ago. I went to Taos and I built these. They're like these self-sustaining homes called Earthships.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the greatest things that like you can use anywhere is, and I think eventually people are going to have like weird little like they're gonna have to come up with other we're gonna have to come up away with workarounds on all this stuff, right? Because you can't just be completely powerless to it all. But okay, so cooling tubes, you guys should look into cooling tubes if you don't know what those are. Like, it's basically, if it's a kind of the same concept of a wine cellar. So if you put something a meter down, like 3 feet down underneath the ground, and it has to be and you have to have 30 feet of length, and you have an opening on inside the house, and then an opening that's like got like a cage or something on either side, so that little bugs and stuff don't crawl in. But anyway, it's like the convection of so it pulls the air from the outside and it opens it up and it puts it in your house, and it'll be 60 degrees, which I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's a good baseline in the winter and in the summer. So basically it gives you the ground, like underneath, it gives you the ground temperature all the time in your house. And then you can either heat from there or cool from there. And it that's kind of crazy, but we're going to have to start doing weird stuff like this to get around. Like, we're going to have to come up with our own little free energy hack kind of stuff, because it, like, if you leave everything, I guess it's kind of like one of those situations where when you see what absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's one of those things where when you have, that's just in their hand. You can't do anything about the energy pricing. There's nothing you can do about it. You're going to have to figure out other ways around to how to combat it, which is kind of crazy.
That sounds like the convection systems. I worked on one last week, and it's like a big Mitsubishi, looks like a big air conditioning unit on the side of the house, and it sucks the air in, condenses it somehow, and uses that to heat your water and your radiators and stuff for heating. But apparently one of the main issues is that your home has to be incredibly well insulated for these to work. Okay, and like all our houses, like majority of our houses were built in the 60s or older, you know, and they weren't built with this sort of stuff in mind. And retrofitting all this insulation doesn't always, well, it's all money, isn't it? It's all money, everything.
It's all a lot of money. And then the cost of like lumber, and I don't know what it is for y'all, but ours is like a standard plank of plywood was, I don't know, something like $7 something in 2018, $7 and something in 18, and then now it's like $80. So it's just crazy the amount of inflation that has gone up with building costs and building materials, to where it's almost like you're out of being able to build new things.
I think there's a similar thing around MDF, isn't there? That's one I've heard about, in terms of that's like gone through the roof. I believe there's like 1 or 2 places in the world or something ridiculous, or there's 1 or 2 main providers of it, and that's gone sort of stratospheric as well in terms of its cost. So it just kind of all gets tacked on, doesn't it? And it just makes you wonder, you know, how much more people perhaps are going to put up with or be able to afford, essentially, before things start getting a little bit crazy.
Well, it's like I went to this like farmer's market by me a couple days ago, and there was a watermelon that was $15, and I was like, $15 for a watermelon? I am not. I was like, but I really want
Save my money.
I really want it, but like, yeah, I didn't get it. I did not. That was just. I finally was like, you know what? That is it. I draw the line at a $15 watermelon. I'm not doing that.
Was it gold plated or something?
Right, exactly. That's what I was going. I don't know. And someone was like, "Oh, well, they're having a lot of shortages of watermelons." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Isn't it a gourd? Like, whatever." Like, who knows? I mean, you know, it's just weird. This became an economic podcast. I wasn't expecting.
Oh yeah. This isn't our style, is it?
No.
Let's go back to aliens. Because I noticed on your website you mentioned CE5.
Oh yeah,
Tell us about CE5, because most people haven't heard of CE5.
Okay, so it's just like it's kind of like a meditation protocol where you can basically call UFOs in. And that Stephen Greer guy, a lot of people hate him or love him or whatever their stuff is with him, whatever, but he has this app. It's like a CE5 app, and it has like some sounds of like he recorded a bunch of these noises inside of crop circles, and then those are played on a loop, or there's this other stuff like from Mount Shasta that's played on a loop. And I thought this was all like, whatever, I'll try it, but it was probably bogus. Like, okay, whatever. And then he goes through like a 30-minute meditation or something. But it's not just him. There's other people I've heard about, like where you can kind of, it's about like, it goes into stuff like with consciousness, and I don't know if you guys have done psychedelics or where you've gone in all that journey and all that stuff, which is cool too. But anyway, so it's this whole thing where you can kind of, some people be like, oh, that's like demons, you're calling demons in. No, it's not. No, it's like, dude, all it is like you basically calm yourself. Like I've done it with like one of my good friends, and you explain like you're like who you kind of have an intention on like what kind of situation you're willing to encounter, and like you set an intention, and then you kind of basically show it your location or whatever, and then you do this meditation for like 45 minutes, and then you open your eyes and you like watch, and it's been successful for me. So I was able to get contact with stuff or to see. Saw a couple of triangle crafts. I saw which I don't know, the triangle crafts, it's weird that you can call those in with CE5s, but like I think that those are just probably like a military, like, I don't know, I don't really know that those are necessarily like a black ops sort of situation. That I feel like they're too mechanical to be I don't know, and like of an alien
Can
thing.
you I'm gonna have to elaborate that now. You've called in a triangle UFO. So did that appear like after, as soon as you finished the meditation, you saw those, or was it like
like
a bit later,
like within
kind of
like
appeared?
but so like so you finish meditation, like you're like super like zenned out, and you're just like non-threatening, and then that's like, and you're just sitting there, and then you're like outside in the middle of nowhere, and you're just chilling. And then like I did this in Mexico, and I've done it in New Mexico, and I've done it in Texas. Actually, I've been successful everywhere that I've done it. Anyway, and then you kind of, mainly orbs, you'll see a bunch of like orbs that fly around. That's like the main thing that happens. I don't know, like I was not filming anything because I was using my phone. And also like I'm past the point of caring about trying to get somebody else to believe whether or not I've seen something or not. Like that I'm past that. I'm like, if you don't believe in UFOs, you don't believe in any of this stuff, that's on you. That's your thing. Like, cool, that's fine. That's great. Happy time for you. But like so it's more just for my own personal like understanding or whatever. So I don't really care if someone believes that I can or haven't or have like, that's not really my motivation. So so if you yourself are really interested in kind of like getting confirmation of like the high strangeness, or like, is this stuff even really going on, or is it real, I feel like you'll have a much better success than trying to catch it for the public who's not going to believe you anyway.
Yeah, Graham from Grey America is a big CE5 guy. He does it. He does it quite often. I don't know how successful he's been, but that's where I recognise the term from on your website. I thought, oh right, I know, I've got an idea what this is. It's not. Is there like a UK CE5 community that you know of?
I'm sure. You guys have all the. I love the crop circles. I love them. I don't care if some of them are made up by humans. I still love them. They're just, some of those are just crazy talented. Like, they're really awesome how fast they appear and stuff. If I was in the UK, I would be my summers would be like, crop circle chasing, being like, is this one real or is this one made? Like,
I don't know. It's not a big thing that anymore, really, is it? I don't really hear any story about that. There
were some badass ones this year. And it's only in the summer, and it's only in the world. It's mainly, there's some in France and a little bit, there's a couple other places, but without fail, they always come to the UK. But you guys do have some people who make them professionally and stuff too. But some of yours people will say are authentic. Yeah,
it just doesn't get covered. It really.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
No, you have to go to the cropcircleconnector.com. That's the best, or .org. Crop Circle Connector. That's the best site for them. They put them on as soon as they're reported, and then they get like the aerial view, and then they get all the other angles, and Yeah. And you know, if I were, I would like have an EMF reader. I would like, you know, see if there's any kind of different frequency reading within them. Because apparently sometimes there is, sometimes there's noises that you can record.
Yeah.
Some people feel some weird stuff, like dowser people have some stuff going on. I don't know. It's just an interesting phenomenon that is unique to y'all's country. So that's kind of cool.
I'm interested in this connection between paranormal stuff and aliens. Like, I think Mark was talking to us about this last week, and Mike as well from OBDM ages ago, where it seems like there's, like, I don't know if it's hot spots or certain places where maybe the veil is thinner between this dimension and whatever else is happening out there. But it seems to be like there's some sort of correlation going on between UFO sightings and like cryptid sightings and other paranormal phenomena. Is this something you've found out on your
definitely
end?
I mean, like I'm a portal chaser in terms of like, you know, I've been to like Sedona, Mount Shasta, or you know, anytime somebody tells me like some places is a portal, I'm like, oh, okay, for what? I'm gonna go. So like I've definitely been to a lot of places that people say are like Zaptepa Falls, or like the place I went to, Manoa in Colombia, or there's some in like there's stuff all over, like if it's like Marfa, Texas, or to go see Marfa lights and things like that. There's in Hawaii, there's what's the name of that one? Anyway, I think that yeah, there are places that are high strangeness, or that I think maybe, and for me, I almost kind of feel like if you do think about the flower of life, right? And if you think about dimensions and some sort of like bubbles of stuff happening, maybe these are just like the touch points of where our like dimensions overlap or something. So like there can be things that are stranger or stuff that happens, you know, whatever, like the Skinwalker Ranch kind of situation. But I think there's little mini portals everywhere. Like every country will have one.
I was wondering, like, because I've not had anything really, any sort of paranormal experience that I can remember.
Are you close off to it? Like, do you want to have something or not? Because like if you were alone in your room at night and a being appeared to you, would you be scared? Because most people like would be like, so you have to like, or at least like if you really do want to see something, like you have to get over that fear, like otherwise you won't see anything. So like, I kind of feel like the situation is that we've set something up internally within our psyche to like this is real and this is not real, and this is like whatever. And I think if you really actually do want confirmation that something is beyond the world that you see, then you have to work on your fear of it. That's my only advice I would give.
I've seen, I saw a man turn into an owl once.
Okay, I'm interested.
Yeah, that was, let's say I wasn't mentally sober. There may have been some other substance influencing me at that time.
Yeah, well, okay, that's like still that's another portal dimension. Like I think that I do think that psychedelics, though I don't recommend them for everybody, and I don't think they're necessary for, you know, whatever. I do think that like I've met people like on ayahuasca who, like when I was doing ayahuasca, like 3 different separate people said that there was like 4, like one way was like, yeah, there was like these 4 blue men behind you, and the other one was like, yeah, there was these pillars of lights behind you, and there was like 4 of them, and somebody was like, oh yeah, like there was these 4 balls behind you and they're all blue. And I was just like, that's weird that separately they all told me this thing. I didn't see anything with there when I was doing ayahuasca. But then I know this one guy who was doing ayahuasca, and he was with 2 coworkers, and the girl coworker had this, looked like to him like this giant praying mantis came up and started talking to her, and he was like, nothing really amazing happened to me, but I did see this giant praying mantis person like go talk to the girl. And then so they're like exchanging stories when they're like they've come to or whatever, and she's saying, yeah, Mother Earth came to me and she looked like this praying mantis lady with like a bit. He's like, I saw her talking to you. That's crazy, you know. So like there are a lot of examples of people who kind of have shared experiences on a substance where you're kind of thinking, maybe there really is some sort of consciousness like you know, maybe there really is some sort of other something going on that we don't know.
When you did ayahuasca, did you go through the Graham Hancock describes like this purge, and it sounds horrific. Like,
oh my God, you want to throw up so bad at that point. Everybody's always like, I don't like throwing up. Oh my God, that's so gross. That's like not even, that's not a thing. Like, who cares? Like, at that time, your stomach's like, oh, this is, oh my God. And you want to throw up, and you throw up, and then you're like, okay, good, I'm good. And then that's when the party starts. Yeah.
Do you remember what happened? What the experience was
well,
like?
mine was pretty gentle. Like, I've only done ayahuasca once. I didn't have like a big, like, you know, thing where I wanted to do it a billion times. But mine was like, I saw the connections between, like, I saw like the gridding of there was like this like golden spider webs of everything. Like, I saw like the space between me and this, or me and this, or me. Wow. Like, I saw like how the gridding of how everything worked. And like, I could, like the trees, like I understood plant consciousness. I understood how they viewed time. And, you know, so I was like communicating with like the trees and stuff. And then the tree, like this one tree was like showing me how to manipulate like the power lines of energy, and how to give more energy to certain beings or myself or other people. And like basically how to play the violin strings of the grids, you know? So that was fun.
You know, it makes me wonder, and don't take this the wrong way. It makes me wonder, when you go into the experience, you're going into it, you're already interested in the nature of consciousness and reality and different dimensions and all these subjects. I'm just thinking, if you took like a hardcore materialist like Richard Dawkins and put him on ayahuasca, would he have, I wonder if he would have the same sort of experience, or is the experience some way informed by?
I think it is informed by the person a little bit too, right. Because some people like one dude who was there was just like, he was having a horrible time, and like he had like all these like demons after him or something. I don't really know. Like, some people have like really, really, really bad psychological breaks. So that's why I say, like, you only do like psychedelic kind of situation if you're called to it and you feel like you want to expand your understanding of reality. Like, I don't think you do it just, it's not fun. It's not like a picnic in the park kind of thing. Like, they say it's equivalent to like 10 years of therapy or something in one night. So I don't know. It's definitely not like, oh guys, I'm so evolved, that's how come I was good. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if you're apprehensive and you're scared of it and you have a lot of fear going into it and you don't really want to do it and you kind of feel pressured, don't do it. That's not, like, you're not in the headspace, you're not in the place where it's going to benefit you if you're at that place in your life to do something.
It sounds like the cave in at Dagobah from The Empire Strikes Back, and Yoda sends Luke in there, and Luke says something like, "What's going to be in there?" And Yoda says, "Only what you take with you."
It is actually kind of very much like that when you do that analogy. Now that I think about it, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, because Matt, you're quite into like. Because of your day job, how psychedelics might be gradually being used in therapy. Is there any talk on like ayahuasca or DMT being proposed for psychological therapy?
I'm not sure there's any official research. I can't remember the name of the guy who does it at Johns Hopkins. It's Professor Nutt, isn't it, in the UK? Yeah. He and I think that was psilocybin that they were trialing.
Yeah, I think psilocybin's with the MAPS program in the US is like starting to get a lot of traction.
Right. So, but I believe there's unofficial, that's not been sort of, I guess, approved by the government, taking people to do ayahuasca in South America, and that has success for people. So, like what you said about it being worth about 1,000 hours of therapy, I think it's probably true. And I think it's probably true of people who hold a lot of anxieties and worries and all the rest of it, and to be confronted by actually see your demon, which seems to be sort of like the experience of people when they hold those kinds of fears before going in, and it seems to be sort of like a repeated experience. And we've had on Guy Murray,
yeah.
so he had PTSD and he cured his with LSD. Did a massive trip, and he literally at the end of his trip, when he had his breakthrough, threw up some black bile. And again, that's so powerful, isn't it, to have that experience of either slaying a demon, and facing it down and going through that, but also expelling some kind of black bile from your body and then feeling better. So
yeah, anyone who's interested in this area, if you find our show with Guy Murray, it was absolutely fascinating. He's only a young guy, isn't he? And he was in, I don't know if it was Iraq or Afghanistan. And
Afghanistan, yeah.
He basically saw his best mate killed, and it ruined him basically. And he, like he describes, he cured himself with psychedelics. And
I mean, yeah. So like the kind of thing is, it's like the thinking, or how it's kind of put in psychological terms, is it resets your, I think it's called the default mode network, so your pattern of thinking essentially. So instead of having focusing on all these traumatic memories or whatever, all your anxieties and your worries, what it does is it resets that kind of pattern of thinking. Now the issue is that some of the research that's kind of coming out when it's done in Johns Hopkins or down, I can't remember what university it is in the UK, they're kind of finding that a lot of people after about 6 months, they kind of go back again. So whether or not they could do another trip after that, and it kind of helps again, I think they're trying to find out essentially.
Well, my very first experiment with any psychedelics was like 5 years ago when I was 35, and I went to the redwood forest, and I was just gonna, my friends were like, we're just gonna do some mushrooms and see like the plants are gonna look really pretty. It's gonna be really like, you're gonna see like ferns grow. It's gonna be so pretty. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can do it. It's just a mushroom. It's from nature anywhere. It's just I was like, oh, okay, I think I could do that. Okay, right. It's not like I'm doing meth or something. I was like, okay. So then they were passing around the bag of mushrooms, and like we each had our own bag of mushrooms. We were there for like 4 nights, and they were passing around spoonfuls of peanut butter because they were like, oh, it's really gross, so it's better if you eat it with peanut butter. And so I was like, oh, okay. So like I take a mushroom and I'm like, it's not that gross. And then I just eat the whole bag, and then they finally get around to me, and they give me they're like, here's a spoonful of peanut butter. Oh, whoa, where are your mushrooms? And I was like, I didn't need peanut butter. It was fine. And they were like, wait, did you eat all those? And I was like, yeah, I just ate them all.
You took a heroic
for the whole
dose.
4 days. It was for the whole weekend, like the whole thing. What do you do? You just took 12 grams. I was like, wait, what? I didn't know what grams were. I didn't know what anything was. And they're like, oh, Jesus, should we make her throw up? Like, what do we do here? Like, oh my God, we're like in the middle of the forest. There's, yeah, we were screwed. So it was like, all right, well, just enjoy the ride, right? And so then I totally had like an ego death and was not human and was not I was not on earth anymore. I was back with the source energy of everything. And but what I will say, and I've talked about that experience before a lot, but it completely took away my fear of death.
This is a common thing, isn't it?
Yeah, which I didn't even know I had a fear of death until and it's not even that, like,
so you realize you're taking 12 grams of mushrooms. That'll give you fear of death.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I felt like I did die, and I felt like I was there like thousands of years. I felt like I was there longer than I was here, even still, and I have full memory of it. So I don't know that I don't know it. I definitely think I wouldn't wish that on anybody, because that was like it was very hard to go through at the time. But at the same time, I think the experiences I felt from it were invaluable, and definitely I just don't think death is something to fear, no matter what.
The time dilation. This is something that really interests me. Ever since we had the parachute jumper. I'm blanking on his name. Do you remember?
Yeah, I was thinking about him the other day, and I cannot remember his name.
Oh, I have to
gosh.
know about this though.
Oh,
Did
I'll
it
send you
begin
a
with
link.
did it begin with a le?
I can't remember. Have a look while I'm explaining.
Okay.
So what happened to him?
Well,
He's going to tell you.
he was a parachute instructor for the army. So he was in the Royal Signals, and eventually he worked his way up. He fell in love with parachute jumping and worked his way up to be an instructor. And then he got to the stage where he would do, like at air shows and stuff, where they'll have like parachute competitions, and they've got to land on the
like land on an X or something. Or,
yeah, and they do these crazy maneuvers and have smoke coming out of them and stuff like that. So he's like top of his game. He was like one of the best in the country, and he was doing a exhibition, parachute exhibition at some air show or military. Like he'd been to Canada for military games and stuff like that. And he thinks he was about 100 feet up, and his chute failed, collapsed. And he hit the deck and had a near-death experience. And I can't go through all the details because it's well over a year now. I'm blanking on some of them. But he described the experience like the life review as lasting about 10 years. He felt like it was 10 years. It took 10 years to do the life review. And the people who were around him, there was mixed opinions that he even lost conscious. Like one of the people there said, you never lost conscious for the whole time. And someone else said, oh, you might have lost conscious for 10, 20 seconds and then you were awake again. He said it lasted 10 years. That's what it felt like to him. Mm-hmm. And it's an incredible story. He broke both his femurs, his legs were shattered. I mean, he shouldn't have survived, basically.
Wow.
But he ended up in a wheelchair, years of rehabilitation, and now he does marathon cycling events. He's back walking, fully recovered, and he does like extreme marathon cycling events, like 200-mile cycle race and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Ian Lyons.
That's the one. Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating.
How did you guys find him?
I did a job for him. He found me. He said,
exactly.
Can you do a job for me? I said, yeah, all right. And we just got to talking. I don't know how it came up, but I think we were talking about podcasts, and then we sort of got into the nature of consciousness and psychedelics, and he started telling me about what happened to him, and I was like, do you fancy coming on a podcast? I do a podcast. He said, yeah, all right then.
Yeah, some of that is the best. I also had a girl who had a near-death experience from a car wreck that was on. I had her on the beginning of the year, and I met her like in real life too, and was just talking with her, and was like, oh, whoa, that's. And she also had she didn't want to come back. Like she was, it was really hard for her to get convinced to come back, and it's I think those are super fascinating. The near-death experiences, they really are.
It sort of changes our ideas about the nature of consciousness, and the analogy I love, and I don't know if it was Randall Carlson, I don't know where I first heard of this, is that like the brain doesn't generate consciousness, it's the receiver. It's like a TV. It's like, if you turn off the television, the signal's still there. It's just the set that's turned off, the signal's still broadcasting, and then you think, well, where does the signal come from then? Where's it coming from, another dimension, or is something else, a soul? I don't know. These are all the questions that we want answered, Nikki.
Yeah, we do. I mean, that's the thing is I had this experience where I was in really bad turbulence in the plane, because I'm a flight attendant, and I was just at first I was like, fuck this, I don't want to be here, I hate this so much, oh my god, I was like, I was freaking out, and then I just found the calm within the storm, and was people are screaming and crying, this was severe turbulence, right? And I was just buckled in my harnesses, and then I was just thinking and all of a sudden I saw I could see my consciousness split almost into three things, and it was there there's something observing through all of our eyes. Like there's the watcher of everything. It's like that is the source of everything that like watches through all of us. And we're like fragments of that, you know. It felt like, yeah. And then it was almost like you have these, like the ideas, they are like clouds you can choose to go through or jump on or whatever. But like, so you're whatever you are, like, or it could be kind of, if you want to use computer analogies, it's like, you know, like there's the internet, which is like the, you know, the everything connected, even though that's a whole other story too. But and then you have like your computer has a hard drive, and then and maybe that's your fractalization of all everything that you've done. And then like whatever's on your desktop is like what your arrow is sort of pointed to, like what you have current control over. But I just sort of saw this, like, you know, it was like a brief second that lasts forever, where I just sort of was thinking like, oh yeah, man, we really are where you can choose like what frequency to go into. I do think that, like, and I do think consciousness is kind of shared. That's why you have all those things of like people getting the same ideas at the same time, or like similar songs being written by people that wouldn't have known about another one. Yeah,
it's interesting idea. Hey Nikki, we've done well over an hour already.
Okay, yeah. Well, thanks, you guys. This was fun. So
yeah.
You guys, you do your little lives every, like, hour lives. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of quite new, really. We just used to record the podcast and then put it out the next day. And then we thought, well, let's start doing video. So we started doing video, and then we used to record the podcast live anyway. So we might as well live stream it while we do it. We don't do any,
then you don't have to
editing,
edit.
right? No, we never do editing. So yeah, we're just sort of having fun and exploring. And is there anything you want to say before we go? Anything? All the links are in the show notes, by the way, if you want to find Nikki's website and YouTube channel and whatnot.
Oh yeah, I got some stuff on there. That's cool. Yeah, I'm good. Like I'm complete. So yeah, it was really fun. It was good meeting you guys. You guys seem like some curious, awesome dudes. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Fun searching for stuff.
You're correct.
I like y'all's guests. I really like your show. So I like what y'all doing.
Nice one. Well, it's been nice to meet you, Nikki. Stay on the line for a minute while we play ourselves out.
Okay, sounds good.
And yeah, see you again soon. Take care. Catch you on the flip side. It's all right.